Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are diving into, well, a pretty huge stack of research.
On the monumental one, yeah.
It's all focused on an intersection that I think causes a lot of anxiety for parents and for educators.
For sure.
We're talking about young children, their teachers, and digital technology in early childhood education.
Right. And this deep dive is really meant to get us past that simple back and forth debate.
The whole screen time is bad argument.
Exactly. And into the actual, the nuanced reality of how, why, and when these digital tools can make a difference.
So where does all this info come from?
It's anchored by a major literature review, a study by Marianne Undheim in 2022, and it synthesized a whole decade of empirical studies.
For a decade.
From 2010 to 2020, all focused on children from birth to 6 years old. So we're really extracting the key nuggets here for you.
A shortcut to being really well informed on this.
That's the goal.
And our mission today is pretty clear then. We want to understand the actual patterns, what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, how teachers and young kids are collaboratively using these tools. And 5 key perspectives came out of this analysis that, honestly, they kind of redefine what play and learning even look like now.
Okay, but before we get to those 5 themes, you said we have to clarify the scope.
We have to. This is a crucial detail.
Hmm.
The researchers used an incredibly broad definition of digital technology.
So it's not just iPads and computers.
Not at all. It's not just the screens, like tablets, computers, or those interactive whiteboards.
That's what I found so fascinating here. It's the whole ecosystem.
It is. It includes non-screen-based tech, which I think gets overlooked a lot. Things like digital microscopes for, science projects.
Or cameras, projectors, even 3D printers in a classroom setting.
Exactly. And the definition also covers the growing world of the Internet of Toys.
I.O. toys.
Right, robotics, coding toys. You've probably seen Bebot.
Oh yeah, the little bee robots.
That's the one. But for me, the most insightful part of the definition was what they called imaginary technology.
Okay, tell us more about imaginary technology. What is that?
It's things like a non-functioning keyboard or a broken cell phone that kids are using in their play.
So, props for imaginative play.
Exactly. Play money with a little digital logo on it. The fact that the researchers are even counting this shows that the discussion isn't just about the device itself. It's about the child's whole concept of digital tools being part of their world.
That broad definition is so important. It immediately shifts the conversation from if we should allow tech to how it's actually being used in teaching.
Right.
So those 5 key findings, they were digital play, disconnected contexts, teacher beliefs, learning applications, and children as creators.
They really tell a whole story when you put them together.
Yeah, they do. They force us to move past that binary thinking, that good versus evil framing that's really dominated this discussion.
For far too long.
Okay, so let's unpack that first perspective, the evolution of play. For years, the traditional belief, and let's be honest, the fear,
The fear.
was that digital tech was a barrier, that it was pulling kids away from real, open-ended social play.
And the research just strongly suggests that view is, well, it's outdated. The core finding is that for young children today, digital technology is just another natural thing in their environment.
Like a block or a crayon.
Exactly. It's become, and this is a quote, almost impossible to distinguish between real play and digital play.
The practices are just so interrelated. They call it converged play.
Converged play.
Or, my favorite term, a coalition of practices.
A coalition of practices.
Yeah.
I like that. It implies a permanent interwoven relationship. But what does that actually look like in a classroom?
That's the key question.
I mean, how does a tablet join the sandbox without taking away from the creative part?
A fantastic example from the research is something called replay. This is where kids record their own imaginative play. Let's say they're putting on a little show,
Okay.
and then they watch it back immediately. The tech isn't replacing the dramatic play. It's enhancing the social practices around it. So by watching it together, they can see the roles they invented, the rules, what everyone was doing. It's like they're building a more complex, shared story.
Precisely. They're reflecting on their shared experience in real time. We see the same complexity with the Internet of Toys, the I.O. toys.
Right.
When those robotic toys were introduced, they sparked what researchers called mutual multi-layer interactions.
That sounds complicated.
It just means everyone was involved, the teachers, the children, and the toys themselves. And that complexity, it generated new ways to be creative, to communicate, and to solve problems. It just completely dispels the myth of passive screen time.
So if the kids are so fluid in this coalition of practices, and the tech is just another tool in the box,
Yeah.
then the friction must be coming from the adults, from the institution.
That's a perfect transition,
Yeah.
because that takes us right into the second and third perspectives, which deal with the environment and the beliefs inside it. The research points to a major tension here.
Which they call the disconnected contexts perspective.
That's it.
So what's the disconnect exactly?
It's this pretty significant gap between a child's broad, sort of effortless access to technology at home versus what's offered in their early learning center.
So they're digital natives at home, but when they get to school, that fluency just stops at the door.
In many cases, yes.
Okay, I get the principle, but here's a practical challenge. A lot of these centers are underfunded. They're focused on maximizing traditional play. Is it fair to just say, use more tech?
And that's absolutely a real-world issue. It's implicit in the findings. But what the research points to as the primary driver of this disconnect isn't just a lack of hardware.
It's something else.
It's the teacher's lack of awareness. Many studies found that teachers just had a poor understanding of how much digital tech was a part of their students' lives outside the classroom. And that lack of awareness, more than a lack of budget, is what creates the gap.
So they don't see the need to integrate it, which creates that digital difference between home and school. And that feeds right into the third perspective, teachers' knowledge and beliefs. This is where it gets really foundational because it's not always about knowing how to use the tech.
Not at all.
You could have a teacher who knows how to use a tablet for a project, but who just fundamentally believes it's bad for development.
You've hit the core conflict right there. Many teachers wanted more technical support, sure, but the deepest barrier was in their pedagogical beliefs.
Their teaching philosophy.
Their deeply held principles about child-led, open-ended play. Those beliefs often conflicted with their beliefs about digital tech. They saw traditional play as good and digital tech as, well, as bad.
So their own philosophy, their concern for the child's well-being was actually stopping them from using these tools, even if they were available.
Yes. The studies detailed specific fears about negative impacts on social development, on health like eye strain or kids not moving enough, and just general well-being.
And those fears became hindering beliefs.
Absolutely. And those beliefs shaped decisions to just exclude technology altogether.
So the answer isn't just to buy every teacher an iPad and run a tutorial. It's about changing that internal belief system. How did the successful interventions do that?
The studies that made the biggest positive change found that professional development that involved discussions and critical reflections was the key.
So talking it through.
It wasn't about teaching them how to code at Bbot. It was about creating a space for them to reflect on their own philosophy and showing them how technology could be a valuable tool within that philosophy, not a threat to it.
That's a massive takeaway. It's about merging the technology with the high-quality teaching they're already doing. Okay, let's move to the fourth finding, which is about the practical applications, learning with and from technology.
Right, this section gives us some really concrete examples, and it shows that how you implement it matters so much more than just having it.
Okay, so let's start with mathematical learning.
A lot of the research here looked at interactive whiteboards, or IWBs.
And what did they find about collaboration with these tools?
Well, there was a really interesting hardware issue. Some math apps, especially on a computer with a mouse, really limited collaboration.
So one kid at a time.
It became a solo task.
Yeah.
But the huge surface of an IWB encouraged multiple children to work together at the same time. So the success wasn't just the software. It was about how the IWB was embedded into the pedagogical practice. The medium itself shaped the interaction.
Wow. So the device could accidentally limit the very social collaboration that's so important for early math? That's a subtle but powerful point.
It is. Now, literacy learning had some really illuminating contrasts. On the one hand, you had open-ended creation apps.
The ones with lots of options, photos, videos, audio.
Yes, those multimodal ones. They were highly effective.
And why were they so successful?
Because children used them as creation tools. They integrated them with non-digital things like books, sand, crayons. They were building these sophisticated products based on their real-world play.
That sounds great. But I remember there was a critical perspective here, too. What was the drawback?
That came from digital picture book apps used in group reading. The studies found that the highly interactive features, the hotspots you can tap,
Yeah, little animations and sounds.
they actually limited the shared dialogue between the kids and the teacher. The focus shifted from the story to just tapping the next interactive button.
Wow. That totally flips the assumption that more interactivity is always better. So if you're a parent or a teacher choosing a digital book, the research suggests for a shared dialogue-rich experience, the less interactive one might be better.
It's a huge insight. The goal is understanding the story together, not just clicking buttons. The technology has to serve the teaching goal.
Okay, let's pivot to exploratory learning. We had some great examples here.
This is where tech becomes a pure instrument for inquiry. We saw teachers encouraging kids to explore their environment with digital microscopes, looking at soil or water samples.
Or trail cameras in the woods.
Right, to capture local wildlife. They're using professional tools to do real science.
That really shifts the dynamic. The device isn't a novelty anymore, it's a core scientific instrument. And to do that, the kids have to learn how to actually use the tool.
Exactly. And the research details a transition they have to make. They have to move from what's called epistemic play to ludic play.
Okay, could you clarify that distinction for us?
Sure. Epistemic play is just figuring out how the tool works, tapping the camera button over and over, learning how to frame a shot.
Just exploring the functions.
Right. But ludic play is when you use that camera creatively to, say, document a puppet show or record yourself building a tower. You're integrating the tool into symbolic play.
Yeah.
They have to master the functions before they can use it creatively.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most crucial perspective, children as creators. The shift from being a consumer to a producer of digital content.
And this is where we see a profound impact on identity. In these creation processes, like making a digital story or an animation, children were positioned as creators. And crucially, some studies found that kids started to see themselves as future designers, innovators, engineers, and scientists.
That's powerful. The idea that the medium lets a child actually visualize a professional identity for themselves.
It's huge. The technology offered new ways to edit to record sound that traditional media just can't easily replicate.
But was there a catch? Did the research flag any constraints in this creator role?
That tension was definitely noted. While the possibilities were huge, one study found that sometimes too much effort was spent just trying to operate the technology.
Or just trying to follow the rules?
Exactly, or adhering to writing conventions that the teacher imposed, rather than just focusing on the creative story itself.
So even in creation, the teacher's guidance is the key factor, making sure the text serves the creative goal and doesn't overpower it.
That really summarizes the entire review. The role of the teacher is always central, providing that support, that guidance, that critical reflection.
So what does this all mean for practice and policy? If you put these 5 perspectives together, what are the actionable next steps?
The review stresses 3 big things. First, policymakers and educators have to adopt that broad, inclusive definition of digital tech we started with. Stop thinking of it as just a screen.
Okay, number 1.
Second, teachers must be given those professional opportunities for critical reflection and discussion we talked about. Not just technical training, they needed to shift those hindering beliefs.
And what about making it mandatory? Does the research support integrating this stuff directly into curriculum frameworks?
Absolutely. The review suggests a need for a more explicit focus on digital tech, embedded into national curricula and teacher education. They point to the Norwegian Framework Plan as a great example.
What does that say?
It mandates that teachers should enable the children to explore, play, learn, and create using digital forms of expression. When it's mandated, the conversation immediately shifts from if to how to the quality of the execution.
Before we wrap up, what gaps still exist in the research?
A big one. The finding that most of the studies they reviewed were descriptive and, well, they tended to report positive outcomes.
So we need more critical perspectives.
A clear call for more research focusing on the critical, maybe even the negative aspects of integration. Researchers need to capture those moment-by-moment interactions, and this is vital. Actively seek out the voices of the children themselves, especially the youngest ones, under age 3.
So this deep dive really shows us that technology in early childhood education, it's not an optional add-on anymore. It's not a necessary evil.
Not at all.
It's fundamental to how a modern child plays and develops. But that potential is completely dependent on how carefully and how thoughtfully it's implemented. It needs high-quality pedagogy to work.
And if this decade of research confirms that digital play and traditional play have become inseparable, a true coalition of practices, then the fundamental challenge for every early childhood institution is to stop asking if they should use technology. They have to focus purely on how to ensure the quality of the pedagogical and social interactions around that technology. If the friction isn't coming from the child, it must be resolved by the adult. Something to think about as you decide how to implement these tools in your own life and work.